The markets are pumping. Bitcoin has reached $100,000 and the altcoins continue to show strength. That's why it's time to discuss what's next and what you should do with your portfolio on your journey through the markets and to financial freedom. Let's get started. Hello, we have partnered with OKX, and if you sign up, you're going to get two important things, which is the lowest trading fees. Right now we have the bull market and I want to trade as much as I can. So I'm very happy with the lowest fees that I can get on OKX. And if you sign up, you can earn up to 270 euros in free money if you hold a certain amount of cash on the exchange. The link you can find beneath here. Make sure to sign up and have a wonderful time on OKX. As I said, the markets are going crazy as during this week we've seen Bitcoin hitting 104k, 90k in the same 24 hours. And altcoins are really not bothering and they continue to rally. So it's time to discuss the markets at this point. And before we're going to continue, as you've seen on my social media channels, our next guest is Raoul Paul. On Tuesday, on our new channel, New Era Finance, you'll be able to watch the entire episode. And I truly loved the conversation that I had with him. I think he said some really cool things that will help you through your journey in this upcoming bull cycle or in the middle of this bull cycle. And if you're looking for more assistance on that regard, I said it before, we've got the consultancy where we can design a portfolio tailor-made for you, make a strategy and assist you and guide you. There's only one concern, given the fact that the markets are heating up. We have decided that we're closing our entry on the 1st of January. So during this month, you're still able to join us. After that, unfortunately, not anymore. So make sure to check out our website if that is something that you would like to receive in this cycle. Now, I'd like to start with the first thing, which is the man that actually started this entire run, Donald J. Trump. Since he won the elections, actually Bitcoin ran from $70,000 to more than $100,000, which is in less than a month. He tweeted, "Congratulations, Bitcoiners, 100K, you're welcome. Together, we will make America great again." He actually didn't tweet it, but he posted it on his own channel. Well, it's all because of Donald Trump, right? So it's quite funny that he is also like saying his congratulations for the fact that we are reaching 100K. And it's a remarkable milestone as my first Bitcoin was bought beneath $1,000 and now we are at 100K. The market sentiment in itself is going through the roof as the alt season indicator is hitting 88. And that shows two important things. One is the markets are getting a little overheated in some way, which means that we've seen a crash taking place on the markets. Those crashes will have an impact on the altcoin markets at some point in time. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But once it hits this number of 88, it's usually a moment where I start to get a little bit like anxious about, okay, maybe we are going to see some correction taking place really soon, or maybe we're getting a little bit too enthusiastic. So it's something to take into consideration. And one of the indicators that is doing really well is, of course, SUI. It has been printing new all-time highs, showing that the altcoins that are still yet to run are going to go way higher than we likely expect them to go, as we're still in the bear market PTSD or stuck in it, which means that I think that we still need to get into the bull market momentum. And when we talk about events, this week was actually a relatively big one, and the big one didn't really have an impact. So we had the Ethereum inflow, and that is finally heating up. So we've seen that Ethereum started to do well, and it hits 0.04 against Bitcoin. But the inflow has hit more than $1 billion USD in a week, which is the strongest week since the start of the Ethereum ETF. And it's now also getting in the top 10 of best performing ETFs since the start of it.
And it's actually getting more inflow than Bitcoin at this point. So it signals that institutional investors are not only interested into Bitcoin, but slowly but surely they're also interested into Ethereum. And then we had a surprise on Wednesday where Powell was speaking at an event and he was openly speaking about Bitcoin. He mentioned the following, in which he said, "It's just like gold, only it's virtual, it's digital. People are not using it as a form of payment or as a store of value. It's highly volatile. It's not a competitor of the dollar, it's a competitor for gold." Um, I think that people are actually using it as a store of value. The first one he is right about. I think that is still something that Bitcoin needs to get to, which is a method of payment. I think around 90% buy Bitcoin to store it against inflation or whatever reason people have. And I think we're just not there yet to use Bitcoin as a method of payment. And I think we'll get to that point at some point in time during the coming decade. But if you look at emerging markets or, for instance, Africa, or Southern America, where Bitcoin is actually being used as a method of payment or stable coins are being used for it. And I think that Powell openly up speaking about Bitcoin is even opening the doors more for adoption of Bitcoin. And I actually think it is a competitor of the dollar, but he was not able to say that yet. And we had labor markets, which had no impact or close to no impact, in which the job openings were slightly better, the unemployment claims were slightly worse, the ADP was slightly worse. Not really any special data coming out, and we saw that the yields and the dollar were not really impacted by it, through which the market just kept on continuing showing momentum. So in this update, having those events, I would like to discuss two things based on a technical perspective, which is the crash that we saw on Bitcoin. And it's just such a beautiful example that I would like to discuss if it is happening on the altcoin markets. And the second thing is why altcoins are still interesting to be bought and what's likely going to happen. So let's discuss the TA and what is next. So as I said, I want to discuss two topics, which is the first one is the volatility on Bitcoin, which is great when it goes up, but those flash crashes or drops can be quite painful. And in my side business case, I trade volatility. That is great to do, and it's great to have these wicks. But if you are directional, and that means that you're betting on one aspect of the market or one side of the market, in this case, mostly of you are expecting the markets to go up, so you don't want to have these crashes, and they can be quite emotional and painful. And the second topic is that altcoins have actually seen a lot of momentum. They're doing great. So what is next? And the first thing that I wanted to show is, as you can see on the charts, is the price action of Bitcoin, which has seen a great move upwards, where we saw the breakthrough of 98K, and then it just stalled at 102.8-ish. But basically what it did was just taking all the shorts that were at 99 to 101K. That's a lot of liquidity that it broke through. A lot of people were expecting the markets to continue running from there. A short hype surrounding media and all those things took place. And that is just enough liquidity to rotate the markets, because everyone, including your brother, your neighbor, your mom, were in Bitcoin longs, expecting Bitcoin to go up. And that resulted into a case where in the candle on Thursday evening, more than 400 million of long liquidations took place. I think in total on the market, it was more than 1 billion that was liquidated through this crash. And basically what the markets did was just resetting the standard. Just taking liquidity in the short case, which was breaking through 100K, and then taking liquidity on the downside as well, where you just take out all the high leverage longs. And now we're in a period of what's next. And I think this is just a prime example of what the markets are going to do. There's a lot of leverage in the markets, and the markets can rotate in the blink of an eye. and then you can have these pretty heavy crashes taking place. And imagine if this happens to any of your altcoins, that if the markets are having panic where Bitcoin corrects or crashes down again, then altcoins are going to go with Bitcoin. And those altcoins are going to have one day of minus 20 to 30%. And those will happen. You can predict that in the next 1 to 2 months, it's going to happen like once or twice. So you need to be prepared for those days. You need to be aware of the fact to take profits, rotate that towards Bitcoin or ETH as one of your base pairs, and rotate it back into the altcoins when such a opportunity, which I would like to call it, happens. So what's next now for Bitcoin is technically we're just going to continue consolidating. We're back and we reset the standards. Depending on the macroeconomic data, it's going to go to new highs or back down. As you can see, we're just having an upwards trend here. And I think there are a few crucial levels that you should be looking at. I think the first one is designed at the area of 100K to 102K. I think if we break through that zone, that's going to inject new liquidity and probably gets us towards a new all-time high around 110K. However, as you can see, this entire trend that we are having here, you generally don't want to lose the trend, because then you're going to have another drop, and that drop will give me the sweet spot of entries around 88K. So if we lose the area around 96, that's going to be painful for the markets in the sense that we're going to drop another 10%. And I think that that drop is going to impact the markets in a substantial way, where the altcoins are going to see that correction too. So we are in between at this point, but we are still seeing that the altcoins are having tremendous opportunities. So if we look at the altcoin markets, we can see that Ether against Bitcoin as the prime indicator didn't really move. It was just having a consolidative period here. It's facing resistance. Wouldn't be bad if it drops a few percent here. But it's about to break through 0.04. And actually, during the crash of Bitcoin, it continued to go up. And actually, that is something that we can see across the markets, where the total tree against Bitcoin has seen or is seeing the biggest bullish divergence that we have seen ever on the altcoin markets, where it's very likely to expect to continue having an upwards momentum, but you can have corrections in between, making a higher low and continuing that uptrend. Again, we've just started going into the bull market for altcoins, as for instance, Optimism is still down 70% from the all-time, or actually the March high. And if we look at it from the perspective of what did happen during the correction in the markets, well, basically nothing. It's just consolidating. The altcoins were not suffering, which means that this correction on Bitcoin was just a liquidity grab and didn't cause panic in the markets. I think that if it happens again, that's going to have a chain reaction across the markets. But it's still a good moment to be buying into those altcoins. And I've got an example here, which is the IDX. It is making a beautiful upwards grind with a constant flow, and then it starts to have a very big breakout. So what happens? It breaks through this previous resistance zone and just takes out all the liquidity above these highs. So you can see that it continues to grind, and then it breaks through this level and starts to make a pretty substantial move of around 30 to 40%, and usually then maybe has some more upside, but it starts to consolidate. So yes, we can have that correction, but we can also have these type of breakouts taking place, which you'd rather want to see or be in than that you're going to be sidelined. And the same can be said about Optimism. If it breaks through those zones here, it starts to continue rallying and takes out all the liquidity here, and very likely we are at $4 or more. And that upwards grind can be seen across the markets. And I just was using the Optimism against Bitcoin chart, that once it breaks through this resistance zone, that's when the actual breakout takes place. And if you want to be positioned into those altcoins, then these are the charts that you should be looking at. And I've got another example for you, which is Wormhole, which is currently just having some consolidative periods, and it's just about to make that acceleration once it breaks through this wick here, which it didn't. It is just waiting, and in between it's having some slight corrections taking place. So all in all, I think that Bitcoin is going to stall, releasing the markets of altcoins to continue moving, especially during weekend times. That's going to be great. And you need to be aware that if you trade altcoins, you will have those big flash crash days. They will happen. And my thesis is to be making sure that you use those opportunities to make more Bitcoin. The question is, what is my strategy? And as I said, I'm trading volatility on the side, but my personal portfolio is in the altcoins that I've discussed with you. And I know that there will be substantial corrections taking place, but I also know that there's still a lot of upside to be made. Like, some altcoins are breaking out. They have seen the first week, but they are not really close to the levels of March highs. For instance, Optimism, as I said, it's still down 70%, which means that getting to the March highs is a triple against Bitcoin. So at this point, I'm just sitting here being patient. I'm just having my positions. I don't want to try to predict a correction on the markets and then just be wrong and the coins are up 30% while I've been waiting for the past months to actually have that move. So I'm going to stay in my positions. And I think if you're in an altcoin portfolio, that is a general strategy that you should be going for. However, once it starts to accelerate, that is where I'll be taking profits and moving towards my base asset. And for now, my base asset is going to be ETH, because I suspect that Ethereum against Bitcoin is going to outperform Bitcoin, which means that I can make more Bitcoin by staying in ETH. Unless ETH goes vertical, then I need to rotate back towards Bitcoin, of course. And I don't want to be into cash because unless there is a very, very obvious moment that I suspect Bitcoin to correct and the entire markets to correct, I just don't want to lose Bitcoin by staying in cash, because if Bitcoin starts to run, I just lose all the gains that I've made with altcoins. So at this point, I'm staying calm, patient, and waiting until the acceleration starts to kick in for some of the altcoins. And that's when I start to rotate, which, of course, I'll be sharing on this channel. Thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel beneath. Also, make sure to watch the new podcast on Tuesday. If you have any feedback or you would like me to discuss a specific altcoin, make sure to comment beneath as well. And I'll see you again next Thursday for the new update. Ciao!